This is the last example in this section, and it's simplifying the square root of a combination of a constant and several variables. And what we're going to do once we write out the question is we're going to start separating everything up. Now we can do that, remember, as long as there are no addition or subtraction signs. Splitting up a square root is okay for multiplication and for division, but not for addition or subtraction. So let's split this up. And we're going to go the square root of 12. Okay, that's the number. And then let's be colorful about this and do the x's next. So that's the square root of x to the power of 8. And let's say we do the square root of y to the power of 14 next. And then finally the square root of z to the power of 19. Okay, so what we've done, we've split up the number and each of the variables individually. So let's work on the root of 12. So we're trying to get the factors of 12. We're just working on the root 12 right now. And the factors of 12 are going to be 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. So remember, for numbers we looked for the factors, and we look specifically for a factor that includes a perfect square, which is 4. So we're going to rewrite root 12 as the square root of, and we're going to put the perfect square first, 4 times 3. Okay. Now for the variables that come next, we're going to just divide each of them, divide the power in half. Okay, so the square root of x to the 8, well, that'll be the square root of x to the 4. And remember, for variables, we should start with a square root sign, or sorry, with an absolute value sign. We can come back and check that a little bit later on. Y to the power of 14, the square root of y to the power of 14 divided by 2, so that's going to be y to the power of 7. And don't forget your absolute value signs. Okay. And then z to the power of 19 is a little bit trickier, because z to the power of 19, it's a odd numbered power that's there at the moment. So when you get an odd numbered power, you have to do a little bit more work. So the z's are going to cause us a little bit more trouble. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate out one power of z. Okay, so that's going to be, instead of z to the 19, it's going to be z to the 18 times z. So you separate out one power of z. Okay, let's see what we have still to do here. So the square root of 4 by 3, we're back to the number part of it. Square root of 4 by 3, split those up, okay, because we're multiplying, which means we can split those up. And that, well, let's just finish that one off. The square root of 4 is 2, so that's the square root of 2 root 3. And that one's all done. Let's move to the x's. The absolute value of x to the power of 4. The power is even. So if the power is even, this is the new power after we've got the square root. If the new power is even, we don't need the absolute value signs anymore, so we can get rid of the absolute value sign. So it's going to be x to the power of 4. Now for the y's, we're going to continue to need the absolute values in the y's, because the new power in the y was odd, which means we need to continue to use the absolute value signs there. Okay? We're not going to be able to do anything about that. The z's. So we've got the square root of z to the 18 times z. So split that up. That'll be the square root of z to the power of 18 times the square root of z. The square root of z to the 18. Again, that's an even power now, so just cut it in half, and it's going to be z to the 9. But remember, we need to have absolute value there as well. And then the square root of z, we cannot simplify that anymore, so we're going to be stuck with the square root of z. Okay? And that's basically our final answer. Now if you want to, you can put everything together again. Okay, you can put everything together again, but it's not going to look great. What would you have? You would have 2 root 3 z to the 4 the absolute value of y to the 7, and you can combine these into one absolute value term if you want. Z to the 9 by root c. Okay, it's really messy, and it hasn't done a whole lot to improve the appearance, but it is now in its most simple form. Okay, so that was the square root of 12, x to the power of 8, y to the power of 14, z to the power of 19. Okay, it's not very pretty, but it is now fully simplified. Okay, thanks for sticking it through this far.